So then let's shift to the other part of your story. What exactly happened? I mean, was it true that it took you another 10 years to get home from Troy?
No, it did not.
So that part of it was fiction.
Yes, that part was mostly fiction. Yes, I did run in with some brigands, but nothing.
Your crew didn't die, and obviously every supernatural encounter in the story didn't happen because it didn't exist, unless you had storms and
Yes, we had storms, but it only took us a year and a half to get home. Mainly because we had to make a lot of stops. We had to do some work to get supplies, that sort of thing. And it was also true about, suitors trying to bed my wife to gain power. And
I was going to ask you about that. You probably saw it in my face. I'm like, that's the other piece I wanted to know. The story of...
So that's pretty much what happened. And
well, did you...
I didn't really write about it because it was just a dull part of life. So
you return home after being gone for so long. People are not going to believe it's really you. Did you disguise yourself as an old beggar man? Was that your idea, or
no? I never did that.
So you just landed on the beach and pretty much... Can you tell me what happened?
I went home.
And the whole story of only you are able to string your bow. The story of the bow and, killing all the suitors. Is that all true?
No.
Really? How did they accept it was you? Because so much time had passed. So clearly the battles and your appearance might have, changed since you had left. How did that go? Did they...
Because I had brought back home all the men that went with me. Well, besides the ones that perished.
So they were able to show that really is you, and people knew them, and so you can't deny it in that case. Instead of just a single man having to prove his identity after 20 years, you have other people that can...
It was 12 years at that point.
Wow. Right, you're right, because the story would have... So there was no killing of the suitors, or, pretty much...
Not by my hand. One got a little angsty and pretty much said I was an imposter, and one of my men pretty much was like, okay, that's it. Because he had enough of, well, what would you call it?
He had enough of the
drama?
Yeah, I guess that's probably a good word. It's like, we're done. So how did your story get out?
Well, because there was a lot of scholars at the time wanting to know what happened at the Trojan War, so they asked a lot of people. And of course, on multiple accounts, some say this, some they say that, and some not even know what really happened or how much time has passed, and then it all comes down to a plethora of different stories conflicting with each other until it melds into one. And
that's what Homer found?
He found a whole bunch of different stories. And what he found, because I had never recorded that, when I got home or, how I got home, so basically anyone could have said, well, he took 20 years, and
right,
because I did not tell anyone how long it took me to get home. All they knew is just I got home eventually.
Right. And then the story of the suitors and your wife holding them off, and the tapestry taking so long. It's like,
yeah, that was up to basically speculation at that point.
Well, I guess people today we have such instant access to information, and verifiable resources, and back then, Trojan War happened over there, and it was so far away, you just don't know what's happening, right? So people want to know, okay, what happened?
So that's why a lot of people, had interviewed different soldiers or engineers or sailors, craftsmen, you name it. And then all those stories were later found by Homer. And then Homer, like a good storyteller is that there's a hole in your storyline with Odysseus. And
well, plus too, that like any good storyteller, knowing the details make the difference, and to play on your emotion and to have the flow of a story in a journey is pretty powerful as well.
And I also must say that while it may not be true what I did, in the Odyssey, but I am really flattered that Homer took it as far as he did.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure if I had, existed several hundred years later, that me and him probably would have gotten along.
So from your perspective, it's remarkable that your participation in a trade, were you really the king of Ithaca, or were you just, because I was reading that they found, they thought that Ithaca actually is the island of Peliki in the Greek Isles. Care to confirm that? Because they had found remnants of a palace. And did you live in a palace? Were you a ruler of an island?
Of a small island, yes.
Were you called a king?
If you translate it to English, yes.
Come on, people love little nitty to confirm theories. Here's your chance.
I already confirmed that a part of Peliki is Ithaca. I've confirmed that we lived in a palace. I confirmed that my wife was being courted by other people when I was not around. And why?
The cat's joining the party. Why would they? Because they believed you dead, because you'd been gone for so long, and they didn't know. They assumed your death because you were not there. So if what you're saying is true, that you were the ruler of Ithaca and your wife was the queen, then whoever married her can assume that role that you were not there to have. Much like probably everywhere else in history. Right?
Right. So that is why things happened. I felt sorry for her when she told me, when we were recounting stories of what happened over the 12 years, I felt more sorry for her than she did for me, because a lot of my time was either spent in a boat or in a leaky tent.
Right, and she was in the palace. But she didn't have your company and had to rule.
Like I said, my living conditions were worse than hers, but she was constantly pestered.
Right.
And it's like being, circled by, ravenous, hungry, war dogs constantly just eyeing you like you're a piece of meat.
So, how long did you live beyond once you got back? Did you have a significant amount of time before you left that life finally?
13 years.
It's not a long time, but I guess. Well, how old were you when you arrived home? Were you in your 40s already, or were you still young in your 30s?
40s.
It's okay. All right, so that probably sounds about right. So mid-50s is probably the lifespan. Pretty close to back then.
Because I had a more better lifestyle in my later years than others.
Yeah, but you still had the hardships of your earlier years that,
Didn't help.
Wow.
And I once again felt sorry for Penelope, because after my death, I'm sure some of the dogs came back like, oh, he's gone.
So did she remarry?
No.
And Telemachus became the ruler?
Hmm.
And the timeline continued.
It did.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that Homer found the stories that people wrote from the interviews, because they wanted to know what happened, and that the essence of that still exists in this year. In this modern time, I think there are good story lessons on, being clever, outthinking situations, facing the unknown, and moving through obstacles, even though you might be fearful and not know how it's going to turn out, but you still do it, because not doing it feels worse. Would that be a good analogy to say?
Yes, that would be a good way of saying it.
So, anything else you'd like to talk about before we end our time together?
I've met Homer, and he's a good guy.
I know. I know who Homer is. He's the one who put you up to it, didn't he?
I can't deny it.
I can feel it. That's another story. It was very much a pleasure to meet you. And thank you for coming through. And I'm sure this is going to spark further conversation requests. Would you be willing to come back and address questions that people may have from watching this?
If I feel the need to, yes.
Fair enough. If the desire is strong enough, right?
Right.
Thank you very much.